The scream shattered the quiet afternoon like glass. I dropped the groceries right there on the sidewalk when I saw her, my daughter Lily, collapse beside the mailbox, her small body jerking uncontrollably. Her golden retriever, Scout, barked in frantic circles, pressing his paw against the bright red emergency bracelet on her wrist. He'd saved her countless times before. But this time, he couldn't, because someone had taken him. A white SUV sped off just beyond the corner, sunlight flashing off its chrome bumper. I knew that car. Everyone in the neighborhood did. HOA President Karen Whitmore, red blazer, white pearls, and a permanent look of entitlement had finally gone too far. I sprinted to Lily, my knees hitting the hot pavement. "Lily, baby, breathe. It's okay, Mommy's here." Her lips were pale, her eyes rolled back. Scout's leash dragged across the ground, severed clean through. I could still smell his fur, still hear the panic in his bark as Karen yanked him into her car. The neighbors watched from their porches, frozen. No one moved. No one dared to help. By the time the ambulance pulled up, my husband's patrol car was right behind it, lights screaming red and blue. The look on his face when he saw Lily's body, trembling, I'll never forget it. He didn't say a word. He just looked down the street at Karen's house, jaw clenched so tight, I thought his teeth would crack. That was the day everything changed. The day my daughter almost died, and my husband, a cop sworn to uphold the law, decided some justice couldn't wait for court papers. Before you hear what he did next, tell me, if you saw someone steal your child's lifeline, what would you have done? Before that day, our street looked like the kind of place you'd see on a postcard. Fresh-cut lawns, white fences, flags fluttering in front yards. Every Saturday morning, kids rode bikes while parents waved from driveways with coffee mugs in hand. We'd moved here thinking it was the safest place on earth, a quiet neighborhood where our daughter Lily could grow up without fear. Lily was 8 when she got Scout. He wasn't just a pet, he was her lifeline. Born with a rare seizure disorder, she needed a trained service dog to alert us before an episode struck. Scout could sense one coming minutes in advance. He'd nudge her leg, bark once, and guide her to a safe position until help arrived. Watching them together felt like watching a miracle. Neighbors used to smile at the sight, Lily walking to the park with her little pink helmet, Scout trotting proudly beside her. Everyone loved them except Karen Whitmore. Karen was the self-appointed queen of our HOA. Her husband was always away on business trips, and she filled the emptiness by policing everyone else's lives. She once fined a family for leaving a trash can out 12 minutes past pickup. Another time, she threatened to report a neighbor's Christmas lights for being too bright. When Scout came into our lives, her smile turned brittle. Are service animals even allowed under HOA policy? She'd ask during a community meeting, her tone sweet but sharp. We don't want disruptions. My husband, Mark, sat beside me, still in uniform. A service dog is protected under federal law, he said calmly. And that child you're talking about is my daughter. Karen smiled, but her eyes were pure venom. Of course, officer. Just making sure everyone follows the rules. I should have known then. Something darker was brewing behind that smile, because over the next few weeks, Scout started coming home nervous. His leash found twisted, our yard gate left open. Anonymous notes appeared in our mailbox. Dogs don't belong in this neighborhood. HOA rules matter more than sympathy. We thought it was harassment. We didn't realize it was groundwork for something far worse. If you were in my place, would you have stayed quiet or fought back? It started with barking complaints. That's what she called them, at least. Karen showed up at our door one bright Tuesday morning, clipboard in hand, sunglasses perched like armor. I've had multiple reports, she said, her voice dripping with false concern. Your dog's been barking past quiet hours. Scout hadn't barked once in the middle of the night. He was trained better than most humans I knew. Still, she handed me a printed notice stamped with HOA violation warning. I tried to stay polite. Karen, Scout only barks when Lily's in distress. It's medical. She tilted her head. Then maybe she shouldn't have a dog if she can't control him. That was the first crack in her mask, the one that showed what she really thought of us. Over the next week, she started leaving little reminders on our porch. A copy of the HOA pet policy, a fake complaint about pet dander near the mailboxes, even a note saying, "Think of the neighborhood image." Mark wanted to confront her. "She's targeting us," he said one night, pacing the living room in his undershirt. "This isn't about rules, it's about control." I begged him to let it go. "She'll stop once she realizes we're not reacting." But Karen didn't stop. She doubled down. At the next HOA meeting, she stood up and smiled like a pageant queen. "I think we should revisit the animal control clause," she said sweetly. "We have residents claiming allergies. It's unfair to them." Everyone knew who she was talking about. I could feel eyes on us, whispers spreading like wildfire. Even our once friendly neighbors started crossing the street instead of waving. Lily didn't understand any of it. "Why doesn't Mrs. Whitmore like Scout?" she asked one night, sitting on the couch, Scout's head resting on her lap. I brushed her hair gently. "Some people don't like what they don't understand, sweetheart." Scout whined softly, as if he understood everything. Then came the day Karen crossed a line she couldn't uncross. She called animal control, said our dog was a danger to the neighborhood, claimed he'd lunged at her while she was walking her cat, an animal Scout had never even seen. When the officer came, Mark's badge was the only thing that kept Scout from being taken. Karen watched from her porch, arms crossed, pretending innocence. "I'm just looking out for our community," she said loudly, enough for the neighbors to hear. That night, Mark stood at the window for a long time, watching Karen's house. "She wants a war," he muttered. He was right. She'd fired the first shot, and she wasn't done yet. Before you hear how far she went, tell me, have you ever met someone who lives to ruin others' peace? The summer heat made tempers worse. Every afternoon, the air smelled of cut grass and tension. Karen had turned our once friendly street into a battlefield of silent stares and whispered gossip. It started small. Neighbors who once waved now pretended not to see us. Kids who used to play with Lily stopped coming over. Even the mailman hesitated to linger near our porch. At the next HOA meeting, Karen struck again. She held up photos, zoomed in shots of Scout sitting on our porch, and announced, "Multiple residents feel unsafe. This animal is not compliant with community standards." Her voice carried the confidence of someone used to getting her way. The room buzzed with murmurs. A few people nodded just to avoid her wrath. I wanted to speak, but my throat felt tight. Then Mark stood, the badge at his hip catching the fluorescent light. "That animal has saved a child's life more times than you can count," he said evenly. "If you have real evidence, present it. If not, stop harassing my family." For a moment, the room fell silent. Karen's smile twitched, but she recovered quickly. "We'll review it in writing," she said, clutching her folder. Everyone knew what that meant. More notices, more rules, more pressure. Soon after, we started finding small acts of sabotage. Our trash bins tipped over. Dog treats laced with something sour left near the gate. Once, Scout refused to eat for 2 days after sniffing one. The smell of bleach hung in the grass where he usually played. Mark set up cameras that weekend. "If she wants a war, she'll get one documented," he said. But even then, he didn't realize how far she'd go. The breaking point came at dusk one evening. Lily was drawing chalk hearts on the driveway, Scout sitting patiently beside her. Karen walked by, phone in hand, pretending to take pictures of violations. Scout growled softly, not threatening, just alert. Karen's face hardened. "Control your mutt," she hissed, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. I stepped between them. "He's doing his job." She leaned in, her perfume sharp and artificial. "So am I." Then she turned, heels clicking away down the street. That night, the security camera caught her circling back at midnight, flashlight sweeping across our yard. She looked straight into the lens and smiled. That's when I realized it. This wasn't about rules anymore. It was obsession. Before you hear what happened next, tell me, have you ever seen someone smile right before they plan to destroy you? It happened on one of those afternoons that looked too peaceful to be dangerous. The sun hung low over the cul-de-sac, birds sang from the maples, and Lily was giggling on the sidewalk, drawing stars with sidewalk chalk while Scout sat beside her, his tongue out, tail wagging. For once, everything felt normal. I was trimming the roses when I saw Karen's silver SUV slow down near the corner. She didn't wave. She didn't even stop. She just rolled down her window and called out, "Maybe if your daughter spent less time outside, we wouldn't hear that dog all day." I froze, pruning shears in my hand. Lily looked up confused. "Mrs. Whitmore?" she asked softly. Karen laughed under her breath. "Maybe your mommy should teach you some manners, sweetheart." That was the first time I saw Lily's smile disappear completely. Her small hand tightened around Scout's, for like she needed to anchor herself to something good. Scout barked once, sharp, protective. Karen's eyes flicked down at him, and something dark flashed across her face. She hated being challenged, especially by anything loyal. Mark came out onto the porch just as Karen drove off, tires screeching. "What did she say?" "Nothing that's worth repeating," I whispered, but my voice shook. That night, Lily woke up crying. "What if she takes Scout away?" she asked, her voice trembling. "She said he doesn't belong here." I promised her no one would ever take him. But inside, I wasn't sure. Over the next few days, Karen's harassment escalated, emails to the HOA board, new rule proposals, even fake noise complaints filed with animal control again. She was building a paper trail to make us look like violators. The final straw came on Friday. Lily had another minor seizure in the park. Scout did exactly what he was trained to, barked twice and pressed her emergency bracelet. But as the alarm tone echoed, I saw Karen across the street filming with her phone. "Caught on video," she said, smirking. "Proof that mutt's a disturbance." That was the moment something in Mark broke. He took a slow breath, then said quietly, "She's documenting us." "Fine, we'll start documenting her." He looked straight at Karen's house as the evening sun bled orange over the rooftops. That was the moment I realized the storm was coming, and this time, Mark wasn't planning to wait it out. If someone came after your child again and again, would you still play by the rules? Mark wasn't the kind of man to make threats. He made plans. That night, after tucking Lily in, he opened his laptop and pulled up the footage from our security cameras. "She's been circling our house for weeks," he said, rewinding to the clip where Karen smiled into the lens. "Look, time stamps match every complaint she's filed." He started logging everything: dates, photos, video angles. He even installed an extra camera in Scout's collar disguised as a dog tag. "If she comes near him again, we'll have it recorded." His tone was calm, but his eyes were something else: cold, focused, cop mode. Meanwhile, I tried to keep life normal for Lily, but Scout sensed the tension. He'd sit by the window every evening, ears perked, tail low, watching Karen's yard like a soldier waiting for orders. Sometimes I'd catch a whiff of something strange, bleach or pesticide, drifting across the fence. Karen's way of reminding us she was always nearby. Mark began patrolling the neighborhood, even off-duty, parking his cruiser at the corner just to keep things peaceful. Word spread fast. For the first time, Karen looked rattled. She kept her distance, but not for long. A week later, she sent a formal HOA notice. Service animals are to be reviewed for compliance with community health standards. It was legal gibberish, but we both knew what it meant. She was baiting us into reacting. Mark didn't take the bait. He set the trap. We hosted a community barbecue that Saturday, something friendly, open. Everyone came, everyone but Karen. She stood on her porch, arms crossed, glaring as laughter drifted her way. Scout trotted around happily with the kids, tail wagging, wearing his vest with the camera tag hidden underneath. "Let her think we've moved on," Mark whispered to me, flipping a burger on the grill. "She'll come out when she thinks no one's watching." He was right. Around dusk, after the crowd thinned and the laughter faded, Karen finally made her move. The footage later showed her sneaking into our yard, flashlight in hand, cutting across the grass where Scout's toys were scattered. But what she didn't know is that Every motion light, every camera, every sensor was live, and Mark was watching it all from a car down the block. "She's crossing the line," he said quietly into his radio, eyes fixed on the monitor. "And this time, she won't get away with it." That was the night everything shifted from harassment to evidence, from fear to strategy. Because when the next tragedy struck, Mark would already have everything he needed to make sure Karen couldn't lie her way out again. The morning it happened, the air felt off, still, too quiet. Even Scout seemed uneasy, pacing near Lily's bed like he could sense something wrong in the air. I remember the smell of toast and the hum of the dishwasher when Lily came running into the kitchen, her pink hoodie half-zipped. "Mom, can Scout come to the park with me?" she asked. Her voice had that bright spark that always made me say yes. It was only 2 blocks away. We'd walked it hundreds of times. I could see them from the window, the little girl and her golden shadow, crossing under the elm trees that lined the street. I smiled, poured another cup of coffee, and looked down for maybe 10 seconds. That's when I heard it, the bark. Sharp, urgent, then another. Then silence. I ran outside so fast I didn't even grab my shoes. Scout's leash was dragging on the sidewalk, and Lily was on the ground. Her body was jerking, her eyes rolled back, a strangled sound caught in her throat. And standing over her, phone in hand, was Karen. At first, I thought she was calling for help. But then she turned and whistled, and Scout bolted toward her SUV. The trunk popped open. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. She was taking him. "Karen, what are you doing?" I screamed, running toward her. She flinched, then smiled. "You shouldn't let dangerous animals near children," she said, as if it was the most reasonable thing in the world. "That's her service dog." I shouted, but it was too late. She slammed the door, threw the car in reverse, and sped off. Gravel sprayed my legs as she vanished around the corner. I dropped to my knees beside Lily. Her lips were blue, her hands twitching. "Come on, baby. Come back to me," I whispered, brushing hair from her face. Scout was gone. Her lifeline gone. The neighbors watched from their porches again, paralyzed by fear or cowardice. I couldn't tell which. One of them finally ran over to call 911, but it felt like the whole world was moving through molasses. I could hear my own heart pounding, the distant siren growing closer, the smell of burnt rubber still hanging in the air from Karen's tires. When the ambulance arrived, I climbed inside with Lily's trembling body gripping her hand. My fingers were wet with sweat and tears, and somewhere in my head I kept replaying the moment Scout looked back, his eyes wide, confused, loyal to the end. Mark arrived just as they lifted Lily inside. The look on his face froze me. He wasn't panicking, he was calculating. The kind of look that meant he'd already decided what came next. She took him. I managed to say, "Karen." She took Scout while Lily was seizing. His jaw tightened until I thought it might crack. "I know," he said. His voice was ice. "I've got her on camera." That night, while doctors fought to stabilize Lily, Mark disappeared for hours. When he came back, he didn't say where he'd been. Just sat down beside the hospital bed, eyes red, whispering to our unconscious daughter, "Daddy's going to make this right." I believed him. Because when a cop's heart breaks, the badge doesn't protect the guilty, it exposes them. Before you hear what happened next, tell me, if someone stole your child's lifeline right before your eyes, how far would you go for justice? Hospitals have a smell that never leaves you, antiseptic and sorrow mixed with recycled air. The sound of machines beeping in rhythm with my daughter's heart became the soundtrack of that night. Lily lay pale beneath thin white sheets. Her service bracelet, still flashing red from the last alert Scout, never got to finish. Every time the monitors beeped, I felt my own pulse jump. Mark stood by the window, arms folded, staring out at the city lights. His uniform was still stained with dust from the street. He hadn't spoken since we arrived, not even when the doctors said Lily would be stable, but only barely. Without Scout, her seizures were harder to predict. They called it neurological strain. I called it hell. Karen hadn't been arrested. Not yet. She'd told the HOA that Scout was a danger to children and that she'd taken him for community safety. Somehow, she'd convinced animal control to hold him pending review. It was the kind of twisted manipulation she'd perfected, always staying just inside the law. Mark's hands clenched into fists. She stole our daughter's medical equipment, he said quietly. If this were insulin or oxygen, she'd already be in handcuffs. I tried to hold it together for Lily, but my voice cracked. We can't lose Scout. She won't recover without him. Mark turned then, eyes blazing with a kind of fury I'd never seen before. We won't. Trust me. When visiting hours ended, I refused to leave Lily's side. But Mark didn't stay. He kissed her forehead, whispered something I couldn't hear, and walked out into the cold night. Hours later, he called me. I found her car, he said flatly. The SUV she used. My stomach twisted. Mark, what are you going to do? Get justice, he replied. Then the line went dead. I sat there in the dim hospital light, staring at Lily's fragile chest rising and falling. Every beep of the monitor echoed one truth. Our little girl might not survive another attack. And out there in the dark, my husband wasn't just a cop anymore. He was a father with nothing left to lose. Before you hear what he did next, tell me, do you believe justice can ever stay clean when it's born out of love? Mark didn't come home that night. I found out later he never clocked in at the precinct either. Instead, he drove straight to the impound lot where animal control kept Scout. He flashed his badge, calm and professional, and asked to inspect an evidence animal for an ongoing theft case. They let him in without question. Scout's cage was at the far end. The moment Mark approached, Scout's ears perked and his tail thumped weakly against the floor. Hey, buddy, Mark whispered, kneeling. You did good. You held on. Scout licked his hand through the bars, whining softly, sensing the fear still clinging to his clothes. But Mark noticed something else, the intake report. Karen had filed it under community hazard complaint, claiming Scout was unlicensed. A lie. Mark had copies of every permit, every certification. And when he checked the timestamps, his jaw tightened. The complaint had been logged minutes after Lily collapsed. He took photos of everything, paperwork, camera logs, Scout's condition. Then he pulled security footage from the parking lot, showing Karen's SUV entering with Scout in the back. No animal control escort. Just her. Alone. The next morning, Mark met his captain at the station. This isn't about HOA policy anymore, he said, slamming the folder onto the desk. It's kidnapping, obstruction, and reckless endangerment of a child with a medical condition. His captain sighed. You know the rules, Mark. If you're involved personally, you can't lead the case. Mark leaned forward. Then find someone who will, because if the law won't move fast enough, I will. By that afternoon, word spread through the department. Karen's name came up in half a dozen reports, noise complaints, petty calls, even a restraining order she once filed against a neighbor over a fence dispute. She had a history of weaponizing rules to get her way. That evening, Mark came to the hospital with Scout beside him, tail wagging faintly. The moment Lily saw her dog, her monitors jumped, heart rate rising, brain activity spiking. The nurse gasped, "It's like she knows he's here." Mark knelt beside the bed. "She's going to be okay, now," he said, brushing Lily's hair back. But beneath his calm, I saw the storm brewing. Because he hadn't just brought Scout back, he brought proof. And in that folder was everything needed to destroy Karen's carefully polished image. "I'm taking this to the DA in the morning," he said quietly. "But before that, she's going to hear from me." That was the night I realized revenge doesn't always come in anger. Sometimes it comes in silence with a badge and a promise. The courthouse smelled of coffee and fear. Reporters waited outside the glass doors, cameras ready, whispering about the HOA scandal that shook Ridgeview Estates. Inside, the tension was thick enough to taste. Karen sat at the defendant's table, wearing a gray blazer 2 sizes too stiff for her, chin high as if she still ran the neighborhood. Mark sat across from her, uniform pressed, badge gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. But this wasn't the officer the town knew. This was the father, the man who'd watched his daughter nearly die while a self-righteous neighbor kidnapped her lifeline. The DA opened with the footage. The screen flickered to life, showing Karen's SUV pulling into our driveway, Scout barking desperately. The timestamp matched the exact moment Lily's medical alert bracelet activated. You could hear the sound, the faint beeping of distress. The courtroom went still. Then came the next clip, Karen dragging Scout into her vehicle, slamming the trunk, and driving away. The gasps in the room were sharp, like air being sucked out. Karen's attorney stood, trying to spin it. My client acted out of concern for safety. Concern, Mark interrupted, his voice low but resonant. The judge didn't stop him. Everyone wanted to hear what came next. You don't steal a child's medical service dog out of concern. You don't leave a little girl to die on the pavement. Karen shifted in her seat, face pale beneath her makeup. The prosecutor continued, presenting more evidence. Emails Karen sent to the HOA board about removing the disturbance, audio from a meeting where she bragged. Some rules need enforcing the hard way. Every word nailed her deeper into her own coffin. When it was my turn to testify, I held Lily's medical bracelet up for everyone to see. This device is connected to Scout's alert system. I said, my voice trembling. He presses it when she's about to seize. That day, he couldn't, because Karen had taken him. Karen's lawyer objected, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. Then came Mark's testimony. Calm, professional, devastating. He explained the timeline, the recordings, the motive. She weaponized authority, he said quietly, and she almost killed a child doing it. When cross-examined, Karen finally cracked. You all act like I'm the villain, she shouted, rising to her feet. That dog was dangerous. That family never respected the rules. This neighborhood almost became a crime scene because of you. The judge cut in sharply. Silence. The kind that follows truth. When the verdict came, the courtroom erupted, guilty on all counts: theft, reckless endangerment, and obstruction. The judge's words were final and cold. You will serve 18 months and pay full restitution, including medical and training costs. Karen's face twisted as reality sank in. She looked at Mark as they led her away, whispering, "You think you've won? People like me always come back." Mark didn't flinch. "Not to our street," he said quietly. Outside, reporters swarmed, but Mark just walked past them, hand resting on Scout's head. I followed with Lily in my arms, her small fingers clutching Scout's vest. Justice had come, not through vengeance, but through exposure. And yet, the victory fell heavy, because no sentence could erase the image of my daughter lying helpless on that pavement. Before you hear how life finally began to heal, tell me, after everything, do you think forgiveness is possible when someone tries to destroy what you love most? The courthouse emptied slowly, but Karen's echo lingered long after the gavel fell. Reporters shouted questions, camera flashes painted the marble walls, and somewhere outside, I heard the sound of Scout barking softly, like even he knew it was finally over. But Mark wasn't satisfied yet. Justice on paper wasn't the same as justice in the heart. He waited by the parking lot, uniform jacket slung over one shoulder, eyes locked on the transport van where deputies led Karen in handcuffs. The sky was turning gold with sunset, peaceful, almost poetic. She spotted him and sneered. "You really think a little courtroom stunt makes you better than me?" she spat. Mark didn't answer at first. He walked closer until only the van door separated them. "No," he said quietly. "It makes me decent. Something you stopped being a long time ago." She laughed bitterly. "Decent? You broke half a dozen department rules going after me. If you weren't hiding behind that badge, you'd be sitting next to me." Mark's gaze didn't waver. "You're right," he said, "but I didn't need to break the law. I just had to show everyone who you really were." For the first time, Karen's confidence cracked. Her lip trembled, and her voice dropped to a whisper. "You ruined me." "No," Mark said softly. "You did that yourself." The deputies shut the door, and the van pulled away. Dust swirled behind the tires, catching the last rays of daylight. Mark exhaled for the first time in weeks, shoulders lowering as if a weight had finally lifted. When he turned back toward me, Scout bounded up, tail wagging wildly. Lily clapped her hands from the bench nearby, her laughter, light, pure, healing, cutting through the heavy air. Mark knelt beside her. You okay, Peanut? She nodded, stroking Scout's fur. He's home now. He's not scared anymore. Mark smiled faintly. Neither are we. That night, back home, we lit a single candle on the porch, the same place Karen used to glare at us from across the street. The flame danced softly in the wind, and for the first time, the silence around us wasn't heavy, it was peace. I looked at my husband, his face lit by the flickering glow. You didn't just get revenge, I said quietly. You got justice. He nodded once, eyes on the flame. Justice is when truth finally makes noise. Before you hear how we rebuilt our lives after that storm, tell me, if someone tried to take your peace, would you rebuild or burn everything they loved to ash first? 6 months later, Ridgeview Estates looked like a different place. The whispers were gone. The tension that once clung to every fence and mailbox had dissolved into something quieter, guilt, maybe, or relief. The HOA had new leadership now, people who believed rules were meant to protect, not punish. They even passed a new clause called Lily's Law, mandating full protection for service animals within the community. Lily was the guest of honor at the first neighborhood gathering since the trial. She wore her favorite yellow dress, Scout's leash in hand, his new vest freshly polished. Everyone clapped when she took the stage, small and shy, but brave in that way only kids who've seen too much can be. Scout saved my life, she said simply into the microphone, and my dad saved Scout. Mark and I stood in the crowd, fingers intertwined. I felt the warmth of the sunlight on my face and realized how long it had been since I'd let myself just breathe. For the first time, the street didn't feel haunted. It felt like home again. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the rooftops, we sat on the porch, just us, Lily, and Scout lying at her feet. The cicadas buzzed in the distance, and the scent of summer drifted through the air, cut grass, barbecue smoke, and faint traces of peace. Mark looked out over the quiet cul-de-sac. He said softly, I used to think justice was about punishment. And now, I asked. He smiled faintly, watching Lily chase Scout across the yard. Now, I think it's about protection. Making sure no one else ever goes through what we did. I nodded, feeling tears warm my eyes. She's stronger because of it. He reached over, taking my hand. So are we. For a long moment, we just sat there, the street calm, the sky turning gold and pink. Scout barked once, happy, playful, free. I thought about everything we'd lost and everything we'd rebuilt. Karen's house had been sold months ago. Her name now, just a warning whispered by new residents. Don't be a Karen. But for us, it wasn't about her anymore. It was about moving forward, with truth, with healing, and with gratitude for the life that almost slipped away. Sometimes justice isn't loud. It's quiet, like a heartbeat returning to rhythm, or a little girl's laughter echoing down a peaceful street. And that's how our story ended, not with revenge, but with peace finally finding its way home.